Welcome to my anime recap. Like and subscribe for more. 20-year-old Ryo Mahara gets hit by a truck-kun. After that, he finds himself in a strange place. The place feels like heaven, or something between life and death. In this quiet world, he meets a being that looks like an angel and introduces himself as Michael. This angel explains that Ryo will start a new life in another world. And before this new life begins, Ryo receives a few important things. He gets food that can last for 2 months. He also receives a small house. A magical barrier protects it from nearby monsters. Along with this, he is given an encyclopedia. This encyclopedia holds knowledge about the forest. It explains the monsters and plants that live there. This clearly shows that Ryo has only 2 months to get ready. He must learn how to live in this new place. He needs to find ways to get food. He also needs to protect himself. Michael also tells him something important. There are no rules, no secret tricks. Ryo is free to live a peaceful life if he wants to. This looks true. Ryo has food. He has a home. He spends many days, maybe even weeks, learning how to use his powers without any danger around him. He imagines water, and it flows from his hands. This solves the water problem. But now, he thinks about fire. He tries to make fire by rubbing pieces of wood. He cannot do it. One day, he looks at the sun. A smart idea comes to his mind. He thinks about making ice. If he can shape ice like a round lens, then maybe he can use sunlight to make fire. He pictures the water molecules changing in his mind. It works. He creates real ice. He makes a lens from it and uses sunlight to make fire. This solves the fire problem. Now only one big issue is left. He must be ready to face monsters. He tries to attack using water magic, but it feels too soft, like the banana in his pants. This will not help him in a real fight. He knows that only ice magic can be strong enough. He tries to make sharp ice like spears, but the spears do not work right. He cannot control them well. He realizes he needs much more training. He spends many days practicing magic and reading his encyclopedia about monsters. Later, when he feels more ready, he leaves the house to look for food. He finds some quartz stones that can help make fire, but something goes wrong and he comes face to face with a demon boar. The encyclopedia explains that the demon boar is a weak monster, but when Ryo sees it in real life, he becomes very afraid. He freezes in fear. Somehow, he stays alive after the first attack. The boar comes again. This time, Ryo uses his quick thinking. He uses his ice magic with great effort and defeats the monster. That night, he reads more from the encyclopedia. His eyes stop at the last 2 pages. One page speaks about dragons. These creatures can destroy whole cities with one hit. No one can escape from them. The last page talks about demons. Only one line is written. It says people should pray they never meet one. Ryo becomes even more alert after reading this. In the next few days, he keeps searching for food. Then he meets another powerful monster. It is an assassin hawk. The encyclopedia says this bird is much stronger than the demon boar. It moves very fast, like the wind. Ryo sees that he cannot run away. He must face it. This time, he stays calm. He creates an ice shield. The hawk crashes into the shield and loses one eye. Now hurt, the hawk sees that Ryo is not easy to beat. It decides to fly away. Time keeps moving forward. Ryo keeps fighting more monsters. His magic becomes much stronger. He learns to use a water cutter. This magic can slice even rocks without trouble. Near the lake, he meets a strange knight, a Dullahan. This warrior has no head. The encyclopedia does not mention this knight. It is stronger than anything Ryo has seen so far. He knows he cannot win against it, but something unexpected happens. Dullahan defeats him but does not kill him. It feels like the knight wants to help him. Ryo begins visiting the lake every night. He trains with Dullahan again and again. One day, Dullahan gives him a gift. It is a sword made from water. The blade looks like flowing water, but it is stronger and sharper than any real sword. Some days have passed. Ryo meets the same assassin hawk again, but this time, the hawk has changed. It has evolved. Now it is much more dangerous. It attacks first. Its new power stops Ryo's magic. Now magic is useless. Ryo is forced to fight with his sword. The water sword from the knight helps him. The hawk does not expect this. Because of that one mistake, Ryo gets the upper hand. He defeats the hawk in a single move. On his way back, a giant dragon appears. Its name is Lewin. The dragon speaks using thoughts. It says that it is looking for the assassin hawk. Ryo feels scared but tells the truth. His honest words surprise the dragon. Lewin forgives him. Then the dragon notices the sword. It knows what the sword is. Lewin explains that this blade was made by the fairy king. This means that someone very powerful is helping Ryo. They start talking like old friends. Ryo uses the chance to ask many things about this world. They speak for a long time. Nearly a full day passes. Then the dragon hears a call from its clan. Lewin ends the talk and leaves. Far away, Michael watches everything. He now understands something rare. Ryo has a hidden gift. This gift is called Eternal Youth. Michael has not seen this power in anyone since he last brought someone to this world, someone named Phi, almost 1,000 years ago. Early in the morning, Ryo goes to the seashore to collect seafood. On this quiet trip, he finds a broken ship lying near the coast. Next to the wreck, he sees a man's body lying still. After checking his pulse, Ryo understands that the man's soul has already left this world. He then notices another man on the other side of the wreck. This one is still alive. His name is Abel. A short story lies behind this. Abel and a few others were sailing on that boat when a wild thunderstorm came without warning. During the storm, a giant titan octopus attacked the boat. The ship broke into two and everyone fell into the sea. Luckily, this happened close to land, so the waves brought them to shore. Now, Abel is unconscious. Ryo carries him home and then leaves to take care of his daily chores. At some point, Abel wakes up. He looks around, confused, and steps outside. What he sees surprises him. There is a flower garden and a neat stone path that leads into the forest. Ryo made all of this. Soon, Ryo returns. He feels happy to see that Abel is safe. He does not know who Abel is, but he is still glad. Abel did not feel anything before Ryo arrived. He wonders if Ryo has a special skill to sense everything around him. Ryo's worn-out look and his lack of proper clothing change Abel's first thoughts about him. Things are not how the warrior expected them to be. Abel wants to ask about Ryo's lack of clothes, but he stops himself. He does not want to be rude the first time they talk. Instead, he introduces himself politely and thanks Ryo. He believes Ryo has saved his life. Ryo calmly says he does not need any thanks. He only brought Abel back to the house. Then Ryo becomes serious. He shares the sad truth. All the others from the boat are gone. Abel responds without emotion. He says there is no need to feel bad for them. Everyone on that boat had been smugglers. Before he can explain more, hunger stops him. His stomach growls. Ryo suggests they talk more over lunch. Now that they understand each other, Abel asks about Ryo's clothes. Ryo explains simply. He does not have any thread or cloth to make clothes. Abel says he could just buy clothes from a nearby town, but then he stops. It hits him that Ryo probably has no money and might be living like an exiled holy man. In truth, Abel does not know anything about this place. He only guesses that towns exist nearby. Ryo explains everything clearly. No town is close. This is why he lives like this. Abel then asks how Ryo finds food or anything useful. Ryo tells him about his magic. He uses water magic. Abel is very surprised. From what he knows, only half the people in the central province can use magic. This makes Ryo feel a little sad. He thought he was more special. Michael had told him that only 20% of people could use magic. Abel still wants to confirm something. He asks Ryo to take him back to the shipwreck. When they reach the shore, the place looks different. No bodies are there now. Ryo thinks the sea pulled them away, or maybe monsters took them. This means one thing: if Ryo had not saved Abel, he would be gone too. Abel feels even more thankful. He says that even though they are strangers, Ryo has become a real friend. Abel searches through the broken ship, but he does not find what he is looking for, so he changes his plans. He now wants to go to the town of Loon, which he believes lies to the north. He invites Ryo to join him. He says he needs someone to guide him because he does not know the way. Ryo does not really know the path himself, but still, he agrees to help and tells Abel they can begin the journey tomorrow. He says he needs a little time to get ready. Abel agrees and seals their plan with a handshake. Abel wonders about the rough clothes and the lack of magical tools a proper mage should have. These details make him think that Ryo is living secretly, trying to hide because of poverty. This idea makes Abel keep his thoughts to himself. He decides not to ask anything more. Ryo returns to Dullahan without telling Abel. He wishes to say goodbye and also train one last time. The knight accepts this final session. They begin again like many times before. The fight ends the same way. Ryo gives his best but still cannot win. But something new happens. The Dullahan gives him a white robe. This simple gift shows the bond they now share through many days of quiet training. The next morning, Ryo and Abel begin their journey to the north. The forest around them feels endless. Monsters often appear. Abel handles them with skill, showing that he has done this before. Still, Ryo becomes the one who draws more attention. His strange way of using water magic surprises Abel again and again. Water mages are usually weak in battle, but Ryo is different, and his techniques make Abel curious. They keep moving forward. Step by step, they pass through the growing forest and enter the mountain range that rises in the north. Ryo and Abel continue walking, talking about the risk of meeting wyverns again. Ryo feels fine facing them, but Abel wants to avoid that danger. Still, he's thankful for their earlier fight, since now they carry a bag full of magic stones, which can be sold for good money. They travel far north and spot a narrow road in the distance. It seems to lead to a town. Abel notices the road heading toward huge icy mountains, looking like Mount Everest. He clearly knows something about the mountains, but doesn't share it with Ryo. He only says that heading east will take them to a town. Ryo feels happy hearing that, saying he's been craving a soft bed lately. Abel didn't expect Ryo to care about comfort and thought of him more like someone who only wants to fight. Abel starts sharing what they can enjoy once they reach the town, especially the tasty local food. They arrive soon and go into a small restaurant. There, Abel tells Ryo about adventure guilds and suggests joining one. He explains that the guild card acts like an ID and gives access across the whole nation without paying at town gates. Ryo likes the idea, especially since Abel had to pay a silver coin for him to enter. Abel also says that with a guild membership, Ryo can trade monster parts and magic stones, though becoming an alchemist is needed to use them well. Hearing this, Ryo becomes excited. His love for chemistry draws him toward alchemy. Their food arrives, and it's curry and rice. Ryo is surprised to see something so familiar. He thinks about how hard anime characters usually struggle to recreate dishes from their world. Here, food like curry already exists. That feels like a blessing to him. He enjoys every bite and keeps asking for more, eating like a food vlogger on a mission. Next morning, Ryo again talks about how good the curry was. Abel watches him and starts wondering if this man ever had proper food before. Since Abel never mentioned the curry beforehand, Ryo jokes that maybe Abel is hiding more surprises. This catches Abel off guard and hints that he might actually be hiding something. They leave the town and walk through open meadows and farmlands. Soon they reach the entrance of Lune. At the gate, the guard recognizes Abel and looks shocked. News had spread that Abel was missing. Abel doesn't explain much, but says Ryo saved him. The guard happily thanks Ryo, shaking his hand with excitement. Since Ryo still isn't a registered adventurer, he needs to pay a fee. Abel pays the silver coin again without hesitation. The guard welcomes Abel back and asks what he plans next. Seeing this warm exchange, Ryo realizes that Abel is well known and liked in this town. They head straight to the Adventurers Guild. On the way, Abel explains that new adventurers usually start from rank F, but since Abel is experienced, he plans to recommend Ryo. That way, Ryo might start from rank E or even D's nuts. The ranking system works the usual way: the higher the rank, the harder the quests. Abel doesn't think Ryo will need quests though. He believes they have so many magic stones that once sold, Ryo will be rich. Selling them all at once might even affect the market. So Abel decides they should first talk to the guildmaster to handle things properly. Inside the guild, people are stunned and joyful to see Abel alive. Ryo watches this and quietly smiles, surprised to have a friend this popular. He steps outside to avoid crowding the room. While walking around, he meets an elf girl. She seems curious about his clothes and says they look like something worn by the Fairy King. Ryo feels confused, having no idea who that is. The girl doesn't explain, saying she's in a hurry. She leaves quickly but hopes to see him again. Abel finds Ryo and brings him into the guild hall, introducing him to everyone as the man who saved his life. The crowd shows gratitude, then returns to their work. Abel takes Ryo to the receptionist to start his registration and recommends him for D rank, which surprises her. She explains that it's rare for someone from the Crimson Sword Party to vouch for another person. Still, she approves of it, but Ryo must go through a physical assessment. They head to the meeting room, where Haikyuu, the guildmaster, rushes in after hearing Abel is back. He's shocked they returned alive from the mountain. Abel uses that fact to support Ryo's rank. Haikyuu agrees, saying no weak person could survive that journey. Before the talk ends, Abel's party members, Lin, Rhea, and Warren, burst in. Lin breaks down at the sight of Abel, unable to believe he's alive. Abel apologizes and credits Ryo for saving him. Haikyuu gives them space to catch up and asks Nina, the receptionist, to handle Ryo's paperwork. Haikyuu tells Ryo that Abel's party is the strongest in town, and everyone missed Abel. He also believes Ryo must be strong, otherwise Abel wouldn't have survived. Haikyuu accepts Ryo for D rank and leaves Nina to finish the process. She asks about Ryo's skills and offers him a spot in a dungeon info class, which he accepts. She explains the calendar and time system in the city, which Ryo finds similar to back home. She also offers him a room at the guild lodge for the next 300 days. After registration, Ryo meets Abel again. They sell some stones and go shopping for clothes and a staff. Abel wants him to use a staff like a proper magician, but Ryo says he is happy with his sword. Abel finds that odd. During their talk, Ryo realizes the world shares many features with Earth, which makes him suspect another Earth person might have changed things here. Abel brings him to a welcome party where they eat and drink all night. Next morning, tired and hungover, Ryo walks with Nina to the guild lodge. There, Nina introduces him to his new roommates, Niels, ETO, and later Amon, a young girl who lost her parents and wants to become an adventurer. Ryo settles in and looks forward to the dungeon class. Meanwhile, Abel tells his party about how Ryo had casted powerful ice magic during their journey, and that too without even using a staff. Lin doubts it, saying such magic is impossible at long range. Abel insists it's true. Rhea compares Ryo's strength to the legend of the Inferno Magician. They worry that Ryo might support the Empire, but Abel says that won't happen. Ryo hates the Empire only because of its name. Ryo joins the other new adventurers for their beginner training. A skilled instructor explains the basics and tells them they will visit the central dungeon in Loon later in the day. Ryo surprises the instructor by asking about teleportation between floors. This shows that he already knows more than a normal beginner. The instructor explains that some dungeons have magic gates, but Loon's dungeon does not. Later, the class visits the dungeon. Large walls surround the entrance, built to protect the town in case of a monster's surge. These attacks sometimes happen when too many monsters escape the dungeon. Inside the Darkstone halls, Ryo teams up with Amon. Soon, a giant soldier ant appears. Amon freezes in fear, but Ryo stays calm. He tells Amon to prepare his sword, then he traps the ant with ice magic. Amon gathers his courage and cuts the ant's head. That night, Ryo celebrates their first dungeon experience with his roommates. The others are impressed that they defeated a soldier ant. Amon admits he only landed the final blow. Ryo did most of the work by restraining the monster. Amon says he wants to go back tomorrow, but feels unsure about going alone. Ryo offers to join him. He is also curious because they found a monster on the first floor. Even though the instructor said it should be empty, Ito adds that soldier ants have recently been seen on higher floors too, and no one knows why. Suddenly, Abel appears. He explains that soldier ants can dig upward. The boys are shocked to see the most famous adventurer in town. Niels jumps up and introduces himself. He says Abel is his idol and asks for a handshake. Abel agrees and gives him simple advice, to always make survival the top goal. Ryo then asks what brings Abel here so late. Abel says he just returned from a mission. Just then, his party shows up. The girls are upset that he didn't report to the guild first. He jokes that he was helping beginners. One of the girls tells Warren to carry him back. Warren lifts him like a sack, and Abel complains like a child. Next morning, Ryo and Amon return to the dungeon. They face a group of monster dogs this time. Ryo holds them down with ice magic. Amon fights well and defeats a few using his sword. Ryo mentions that Amon's sword style reminds him of Abel. Ryo guesses maybe Abel trained at the same place. He sees promise in Amon. Amon is surprised that Ryo, a mage, knows so much about swordplay. Ryo explains that he trained with a mentor but created his own unique style. He points out that Amon's technique looks safe but tiring. With better stamina, he could become very skilled. Ryo adds that Abel used to practice his sword form every morning. Even the most gifted people work hard. Amon hears this and feels inspired. He promises to push himself further, and Ryo feels happy to see his new friend so motivated. The next day, Ryo visits the city library. The size surprises him. He asks the librarian for books on alchemy, and she points him to the beginner section. There are too many books, and the choices overwhelm him. He decides to step outside for fresh air. Suddenly, the city turns dark. A total solar eclipse appears, and everything feels strange. The people around him vanish, and the air becomes heavy. A powerful attack comes from behind, but Ryo reacts quickly. He blocks the blast with a wall of ice. A demon woman appears, calm and amused. Ryo senses she is far stronger than anyone he has faced before. He knows he cannot escape this strange space, so he prepares to fight. She attacks with fire, but he defends using layers of ice shields. She follows up with an invisible wind shot that breaks through, but his armor stops it. She becomes curious after noticing his clothes and gear. She sees he is wearing the robe of the Fairy King and guesses he must be powerful. Switching from magic, the demon draws her sword. Ryo pulls out his ice sword and holds his ground. Her speed overwhelms him at first, but his training helps him keep up. He fights back with a rain of icicle lances, but she dodges them easily. Ryo notices that she uses wind magic to boost her movement. She tries to finish him with a jump attack, but he blocks it. Her strikes are fast, yet not stronger than what he has already faced during training with the Headless Knight. She questions who he is. He says nothing and just deflects her fire spell with another ice lance. She grows more serious now. Her attacks become more intense, but Ryo remains calm. He finds an opening and fires more lances, but she blocks them with fire walls and stone barriers. Ryo adjusts his strategy. He switches to high-pressure water jets that slice through the rocks and hit her. She gets injured and feels shocked, but Ryo can't see clearly due to the stone barrier. He attacks blindly. Mid-air, Ryo notices that she can heal, but he is too late. She uses that moment to strike back and sends him crashing into a building. Just when she prepares to finish him, drops of hot water fall from the sky. They burn her skin. She protects herself by hiding inside a rock shell. Ryo lands back on the ground and gets ready again. The demon uses a large fire spell, destroying everything nearby. She moves toward him slowly, but now the eclipse ends. Sunlight touches her sword and it begins to fade. She realizes their fight is over. Before leaving, she introduces herself as Leonore and warns that another demon may appear before their next battle. She asks him to survive until then. The eclipse ends completely and the world returns to normal. Ryo feels shaken. He goes to withdraw money from the bank and heads back to the dorm. No one is there at first, but just as he prepares to leave, he finds his friends being harassed by other adventurers. The bullies, led by Dan, are mocking his group for being weak. Suddenly, Ryo appears behind them and knocks the lackeys out. Dan tries to fight, but Ryo dodges and knocks the wind out of him with a clean hit. After that, he heals his friends. He tells them they need to work on their stamina so no one catches them off guard again. But first, they all go to the public bath to relax. There, Ito heals the injury Ryo received during the fight. Everyone wonders who could have hurt someone as strong as Ryo. But for now, Ryo stays quiet. He chooses rest over explanation. Amon, Niels, and Ito begin exploring the dungeon together. Niels and Amon handle the fights against goblins, and Ito stays behind to heal them when they get hurt. Niels collects the magic stones from the defeated goblins while Ito heals Amon. They talk about how strange things feel. Goblin archers on the 4th floor don't make sense. Niels thinks they should head back. Ito agrees without hesitation. Amon wants to go deeper for more rewards, but Niels reminds him of Abel's warning to never put their lives at risk for a few coins. They return to the surface, which turns out to be a smart decision. Because deeper in the dungeon, another team has already been killed by a much stronger monster. On the surface, Ryo continues reflecting on his fight with Leonore. Her magic felt unreal, but his casting speed matched hers. He sees that his biggest weakness is his lack of movement speed. Wind magic would be perfect, but he cannot use that. He comes up with an idea to use water jets to move faster. He tries creating an icy surface and pushes himself with water jets from his back. The result is disappointing, and he moves very slowly. He sees potential in the technique, so he decides to keep working on it. Later, Ryo heads to the library to research demons and alchemy. Lynn from Abel's party is also there, searching for any spell that can form an ice wall, strong enough to crush golems. She finds nothing. This makes her feel better because she wants to believe Ryo is a fake who somehow fooled Abel. Just when she finishes reading, she sees the elf girl, Sarah. The two women greet each other and exchange small talk. Then Sarah leaves to rejoin her envoy. Meanwhile, Amon, Niels, and Ito return to the guild. Niels gets nervous seeing Nina, the receptionist, and Ito teases him before giving her their report. They explain how goblin archers were found on the 5th floor. Nina quickly checks the stones and thanks them for the information. She hurries to inform the guildmaster. Guildmaster Hugh receives the report and frowns. Goblins should not be anywhere near the 5th floor. He sees this as a serious warning. He asks Nina to call in the highest ranked adventurers available. Right now, only 2 high-ranked parties are in the city: Crimson Sword, led by Abel, and White Brigade, led by Phelps. Soon, both groups gather at Hugh's office. Hugh explains to them that goblins have appeared too close to the surface. That might mean a monster outbreak is starting. The last one happened 10 years ago, and it caused serious damage. He offers payment and explains the mission. If they confirm signs of an outbreak, they should retreat at once. The city will close off the dungeon and bring in the knights. Both parties agree to the mission. The next morning, Ryo gets ready to visit the Northern Library. He tells his friends about his plans to study higher-level alchemy. Ito confirms that adventurers of D rank and above can access the library. Amon says he has heard that forbidden books are kept there too. Ryo becomes even more excited, but Ito adds that only B rank adventurers can read those. Ryo becomes even more excited and heads off, while his friends leave for the dungeon again. Ryo reaches the Northern Library and likes the peaceful atmosphere. He looks for books on demons, but hesitates to ask for help. He feels that others might panic if he mentions demons. When he walks upstairs, he spots Sarah. He instantly finds her beautiful and is drawn to her. At the same time, Haikyuu and the two high-ranked parties reach the dungeon gates. Abel feels uneasy and asks Lin to use wind magic to scan ahead. She detects hundreds of monsters waiting just inside. This confirms that a monster outbreak has started. Haikyuu gives the order to fall back and notify the knights and guild. Back in town, Niels and his friends see a notice that the dungeon is closed. They assume it is because of the goblin archers. Soon, a man runs in with an urgent message. All adventurers must report to the dungeon wall to stop monsters from getting out. In the library, Ryo and Sarah continue their chat. They introduce themselves and begin talking about books. Sarah asks if he is looking for something specific. Ryo almost says he is studying demons, but changes it to golems and alchemy. Sarah is surprised by his ambition and agrees to help him find useful books. She knows the library well. She shares that she is the only member of a B-rank party called Wind. Ryo recalls someone saying there is only one elf in town, and Sarah admits that elves usually avoid humans, but she is different. Meanwhile, at the dungeon wall, adventurers take position as monsters begin to break through the gates. Haikyuu tells everyone to attack. Arrows and magic fly through the air. The knights soon join in. The goblin army seems endless, and Haikyuu feels this outbreak is more serious than the last one. Abel's party runs out of arrows during the battle, but Niels arrives with a barrel full of arrows. He brings a message from Haikyuu telling them to prepare for the monster boss. After most of the goblins are defeated, Haikyuu tells Abel and Phelps to lead their teams inside. Lin helps them land safely with wind magic. They rush through the dungeon and quickly defeat the remaining goblins at the entrance. A goblin general appears and they prepare to fight him. Two more goblin generals step out soon after. Abel realizes they are dealing with a goblin king. He plans the fight so that each general is handled before the king joins the fight. He decides that he and Phelps will handle one general each while Lin and Rhea take the third. The battle begins. Abel cuts off his target's arms. Then he sees the Goblin King appear at the gate. He shouts for everyone to get down. A deadly wind slash flies through the dungeon, killing all three generals. Everyone is shocked. The king's strength is far greater than expected. Abel and Phelps charge at him together. Their weapons fail to break through his armor. Abel then uses his special skill to turn ghost-like and dodge the king's attack. He reaches close and strikes the king's heart, but it is not enough. The king tries a counter, but Abel calls for Lin to strike. She attacks on signal, and her wind spears pass through Abel, who turns ghost-like at the right time and hits the Goblin King, finally taking him down. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. The battle seems to be over, but they do not know yet that a greater threat still sleeps deep within the dungeon. Ryo returns to the guild hall and finds it filled with adventurers in a state of lively celebration. He wonders what event has prompted such a party. Guildmaster Haikyuu watches the scene, wishing he could join the relaxation, but he is burdened with a mountain of paperwork and worried about the arrival of royal investigators. Although the dungeon is officially closed for a month, Haikyuu believes the aftermath will create even more problems. Ryo eventually finds his friends, Amon, Niels, and Ito, who explain the party is for Abel's team who defeated the Goblin King. Niels excitedly recounts the expert swordsmanship of Abel, the final thrust of his sword, and how he signaled Lin to unleash her ultimate spell. Ito corrects him, noting the spell was actually Bullet Rain, one of the most powerful wind spells. Amon joins in, expressing confusion over how Abel dodged such a powerful attack at such close range. Abel himself arrives and clarifies that he used a sword skill called Perfect Shadow, a technique for dodging any ranged attack, including magic. Niels praises Abel as a hero, but Abel insists that Niels played a great supporting role. Ryo finds the name Perfect Shadow strange, which Abel had apparently expected him to say. Lin and Rhea join them and tease Abel for spending so much time with Ryo, his new favorite person. Lin then directly asks Ryo if the rumors are true, if he can really create ice walls in midair. Ryo confirms he can, up to about 40 meters high, which surprises her. He adds that it took a lot of practice and is not easy. Lin remarks that most people cannot do it and asks if it is an original spell. Ryo seems unsure, so she explains that most magic is cast by reciting established incantations. Ryo explains that incantations are a matter of personal preference and can vary, but he can cast spells without them. This revelation leaves Lin deeply puzzled about how such a thing is even possible. Niels then reminds everyone that the food will be gone if they keep talking, so Ryo excuses himself. The next day, Ryo finds his friends gathered around the job board. They explain that with the dungeon closed, they are looking for surface work, but a market surplus means there are no extraction contracts available. They ask if Ryo is also looking for quests, but he says he is searching for a specific type of ore for his alchemy practice. They guess he means magic copper ore, which is very expensive, costing around 500,000 florins, or roughly 50 gold coins. Nils jokes that it must be nice to be so rich and lament their own inability to earn. Ryo gets an idea and decides to hire them all for a private job to collect the ore from an abandoned mine near the village. He offers each of them 4 gold coins just for going, plus an additional 25 gold for every piece of magic copper ore they find. And his only condition is that they avoid danger and return safely. They are stunned, but happily accept the mission. Later, back in his room, Ryo hears a commotion outside. He looks out to see soldiers bullying a girl and is surprised to see Dan trying to protect her. Just as the knights try to take the girl away, Dan pulls her back and pushes them. One soldier prepares to strike Dan but mysteriously loses his balance and falls. It happens a second time, confusing everyone. Suddenly, Phelps arrives and demands to know what is happening. The knights tell him not to interfere, but he reveals himself as the heir to House Heinlein, the son of the former Royal Knight Commander. The frightened soldiers quickly flee. Phelps praises Dan for his bravery and tells him to take the girl to safety. He then turns to Ryo's window and asks if he is the one Abel praises so highly. Phelps then introduces himself as the captain of the White Brigade and says that after seeing Ryo's magic firsthand, he is certain of his talent. He adds that during their recent mission, Abel was certain it would have been much easier to handle the Great Tidal Boar if Ryo had been there. That night, Abel finds Ryo eating dinner alone and joins him. They joke about who should pay the bill, with Abel refusing to treat the wealthy Ryo. Abel then reveals his real reason for coming is that he needs the help of Ryo. He takes Ryo to the market, explaining that one of the royal investigators is an old acquaintance, and some corrupt knights have slipped away from their guard duty. Abel's task is to find them before they cause trouble. Ryo suddenly stops him, pointing out some hooded adventurers he does not recognize. They follow the men into an alley where Ryo is ambushed. He blocks the attack easily and quickly subdues the entire group with the ice blocks from above. Abel finds an alchemy box on them and discovers that they are C-rank adventurers from Jaclair, the capital. He decides to hand them over to the city guards. Meanwhile, the knights who encountered Phelps earlier ambush him in revenge. However, they are intercepted by Shenna, who incinerates them with her fire magic, leaving no trace. Phelps is impressed by her power. Later, a group of men led by Earl Harold Lawrence and Clive Staples arrives to meet Hugh. They demand the dungeon be reopened for their investigation and that the guild provide adventurers for their protection. Clive emphasizes that the Earl has full authority from the king. Hugh is displeased but agrees on one condition. If anything happens to his town or adventurers, the guild bears no responsibility. The Earl agrees, assuming they can hire adventurers at a good rate, but Hugh tells him it is up to the adventurers themselves. In the meantime, Ryo visits Abel's party headquarters, thinking about their nice cafeteria. Before he can enter, a girl named Natalie Schwarzkopf approaches him, asking for directions to the guild to deliver an important letter from Professor Hilarion. Ryo helps her, and she delivers the letter to Abel. The letter asks Abel to support the court magicians in their dungeon investigation. Abel reads it with a worried look, explaining to Ryo about an A-rank party that never returned from the dungeon after a previous Great Tidal Boar. Their leader was said to be a superhuman on the verge of S-rank. This means no one knows what truly happens inside after such an event. Feeling hungry, Ryo leaves for cafeteria. Lin recognizes Natalie's family name as Famous Water Magicians, though Natalie is modest. Lin asks if Natalie has heard of a spell that can conjure an ice wall at a distance, but she has not. They explain that Ryo can do it, and Abel adds that if they ever fought Ryo, not even all 4 of them together could defeat him. He advises Natalie that if she ever needs help and they are not around, she can ask Ryo. The next morning, Abel meets the investigation team. Professor Hilarion shows him a magic device used to trace environmental mana. Abel shows interest, explaining that a friend of his is into alchemy, which surprises the professor. Meanwhile, Amon, Niels, and Ito return with the magic copper ore, and Ryo rewards them generously, making them very happy. Abel's team moves deeper into the dungeon. After 3 days, they reach the 7th floor without encountering any monsters. The analysis team on the surface reports no unusual readings yet. They soon discover a strange, dark door. Clive is thrilled at being the first to find this gate and orders his team to set up equipment and examine it immediately. The moment a magic tool touches the dark gate, the entire team vanishes without a trace. The group materializes on floor 40, where no adventurer has ever reached before. Abel confirms the safety of his teammates. Clive suspects this is where the title board came from and is determined to take credit for the discovery. Meanwhile, Ryo visits the library for research purposes. He encounters Sarah there and reveals his interest in studying records about solar eclipses and tsunamis. Sarah agrees to assist him and mentions her own knowledge of the correlation between these two phenomena. She expresses curiosity about his specific focus on this connection. Ryo feels nervous about this line of questioning. He believes he cannot share his real reason, which involved fighting the Akuma during a solar eclipse. Instead, he asks Sarah about the color intensity of demon stones. She explains that the color becomes more intense when a demon has lived for a very long time, information she obtained from a friend. Back with the trapped team, Harold receives positive news about their detector finally functioning. Lin feels happy and believes rescue is imminent. Harold remains concerned about their spatial surroundings and asks Rhea for her assessment. She describes space as resembling a holy square formation capable of blocking both magical and physical attacks. Abel understands they are confined within a powerful barrier and requests Lin to investigate further. Lin's investigation reveals approximately 1,000 people nearby. Harold theorizes that Clive and his research team were teleported along with them. Abel makes the decision to find and join these other groups. At the guild, the master receives the detector's message indicating the adventurers are on the 40th dungeon floor. He makes the difficult choice to prioritize protecting the town's citizens over mounting an immediate rescue operation. Clive and his magicians face attacks from a mysterious force, resulting in many deaths among those outside protective barriers. Clive becomes shocked upon seeing actual demons. Abel's team arrives at the scene and witnesses the demon attacks. Rhea states that nobody can defeat demons, while Lin wonders about their sudden appearance. Harold prepares the magicians for battle. The magicians surprisingly manage to kill some demons, which surprises Rhea since demons are normally immune to magic. Harold explains that a demon's protective barrier fails when 3 magicians attack simultaneously. However, the large number of demons presents a serious problem, and Harold worries about their limited magical resources. Abel spots the demon prince and senses great danger, leading his team forward. Lin and Rhea work together to eliminate several demons, but Lin collapses from magical exhaustion with no potions available. Rhea identifies 6 remaining demons, including the powerful demon prince. Abel understands the demon prince's significance as a future demon king and decides to eliminate all demons except this formidable opponent. Abel approaches the enemies and turns to encourage Rhea not to lose hope. He boasts that the demon prince means nothing compared to a griffin he once fought. He attacks quickly, killing 2 demons, but the demon prince counterattacks toward Rhea. She informs Abel that she and other teammates remain unharmed. The demon prince then challenges Abel directly. The demon prince strikes at Abel, who blocks the attack but recognizes his inability to win this fight. Clive leads magicians in an assault on the demon prince, but their magic proves ineffective. Rhea realizes the demon is blocking all magical attacks. Harold understands they cannot defeat this enemy with magic alone, and as demons attack both teams, their protective barriers fail, forcing the magicians to retreat. Rhea wishes for Abel to defeat the demon prince and save everyone. Abel uses his sword skills against the demon but gets wounded. Rhea worries desperately for her friend as the demon prince approaches the weakened Abel with a raised sword. At this critical moment, Ryo appears and asks if Abel is hurt, surprising the swordsman. Ryo states he came specifically to save Abel and provokes him to continue fighting. Abel stands up, claiming he only slipped. Ryo descends from a rock and suggests they return home together since many people are worried about them. Abel wants to go home but feels obligated to defeat the demon prince first. Ryo offers to defeat the demon prince for his friend. Abel yells at Ryo for being reckless against a demon prince, but Ryo dismisses the concern and jokes that the demon appears weak. He approaches the demon prince while defeating other demons with his ice spells, then draws his sword and challenges the demon prince to attack him. Earlier, Natalie sneaks into the dormitory in search of Ryo. Someone informs her that Ryo has gone to the library. She hurries away and eventually encounters him on the street, breathless and worried. She tells him that Abel went missing inside the dungeon. The report shocks Ryo, but he wastes no time. He summons an ice cart and pulls it forward with force. Natalie screams while riding it, frightened by the speed, but they arrive at their destination quickly. Ryo studies Natalie with curiosity, wondering why she has come to him so suddenly. She reveals that Abel believed Ryo would be able to help. Understanding the situation, Ryo decides to go into the dungeon. He runs straight to the entrance, but one of the guards steps forward and denies him access. Ryo immediately creates thick ice walls that block the guards, leaving them unable to interfere, and steps inside. He recalls Natalie's words that Abel is on the 40th floor. Realizing that time is precious, he summons sharp ice knives. The blades dig a massive hole directly into the ground, opening a passage downward. Soon, Ryo confronts the demon prince. He challenges the creature, demanding it to attack. Raising his large sword, he prepares for battle. The demon prince charges at him, but Ryo swings his blade in a decisive strike, severing the creature's head, yet the victory is not so simple. Ryo compares the demon prince to Leonore in his thoughts, concluding that Leonore is faster. To his surprise, the demon prince picks up his fallen head and attaches it back to his body. The sight chills the air around them. Turning to face Ryo again, the demon shows no sign of pain. Ryo declares that the enemy is weak, though the creature fails to understand. He unleashes another barrage of water knives, this time striking the demon's core. The force shatters it completely, and the demon prince collapses into nothingness. Relief spreads through the dungeon when Abel appears. He thanks Ryo for saving him and promises to treat him to a meal in gratitude. Ryo rushes to Abel's side, tears streaming as she hugs him. She cannot hide her joy that he survived. Harold, the advisor of the Imperial Magic Corps, approaches and introduces himself to Ryo. He too expresses gratitude for the rescue. As Ryo looks around, he notices the lifeless bodies scattered across the floor. Harold observes the scene and comments that the fallen adventurers must have been too weak to endure. He already plans to retrieve the remains once recovery is possible. Abel soon suggests that he and Ryo collect the demon cores together. Ryo reacts with surprise when he learns the slain enemies were actually demons. His thoughts turn to Leonore, who once claimed to be a devil. He also recalls the strange barrier he encountered on the 39th floor, which has now disappeared. He reasons that its vanishing must be connected to the death of the demon prince. In addition, he reveals he discovered a mysterious item on that same floor, an object he believes is related to the incident. Abel lifts one of the demon cores, and everyone notices its unusual black color. Harold explains in a low tone that demons can wield space-time magic. Elsewhere, adventurers guard a black item carefully. Suddenly, Leonore appears, using space-time magic to manifest. Her eyes brighten as she discovers the artificial altar. Roman, a hero, confronts her and claims she should die here, mistaking her for the demon king. She realizes these people summoned her through the altar and laughs. Learning Roman is a hero excites her further, since she considers heroes to be strong opponents. She stabs Roman without hesitation and seizes the black orb while a healer attempts to save him. She clarifies she is not the demon king, then mentions a human named Ryo, who is as strong as she is. With that, she vanishes. Ryo later guides Harold to retrieve the black orb on the 39th floor. Harold places it into a bag since it radiates dangerous magic. Afterward, Ryo and Abel begin their journey toward the dungeon entrance. On the way, Ryo casually asks Abel to take him to a curry restaurant. At the surface, Natalie greets them with overwhelming relief, overjoyed that both are safe. Abel thanks her sincerely, acknowledging that she was the one who ran to Ryo for help. The guildmaster arrives soon after. He scolds Ryo harshly for entering the dungeon without guard permission. Harold intervenes, revealing that the boys saved their lives. The guildmaster listens with disbelief. Harold then leads him into a tent to discuss the matter privately. Inside, the guildmaster learns that Harold faced 50 demons. Initially, he assumes Abel was responsible for rescuing the group, but Harold corrects him, explaining that Abel nearly lost his life. Harold presses to know about Ryo's background. The guildmaster can only confirm that Ryo once escorted Abel back from Demon Mountain. Realization dawns on Harold that Ryo is simply Abel's friend. Still, he finds it astonishing that Abel's companion managed to kill the demon prince with a single strike. Harold admits he does not want Ryo as an enemy, recognizing the boy's overwhelming power. At the same time, he fears the nobility will target Ryo if they learn of his strength. Therefore, he asks the guildmaster to exclude Ryo from his report. The guildmaster agrees, understanding that the boy must not become the kingdom's enemy. Later, Ryo trains with his teammates by running across the fields. Exhaustion weighs on them, yet he pushes forward until returning to town. The aroma of food drifts through the streets, drawing him into a restaurant. There he notices Sarah already eating. He explains that the curry's fragrance led him inside. She invites him to join her, and they both order curry. During their meal, Ryo mentions that he lives in the adventurer's dormitory. Sarah is surprised, knowing he is only a rank D. He tells her that he received that rank upon joining the guild, though his strength is clearly far greater. When the curry arrives, he takes a bite and finds it delicious. Sarah agrees with his impression. After finishing, they step outside together. Ryo comments that he has never seen her work as an adventurer despite her claim. She reveals that she serves as a swordsmanship instructor for the Empire. She asks him to spar. They face each other in the arena. Knowing that Ryo wields both sword and magic, she attacks eagerly. Joy spreads across her face when he manages to evade. She attacks again, shattering his sword in the clash. Ryo concedes defeat, but Sarah embraces him warmly, praising him for resisting her windsword skill. She learns his sword techniques came from his teacher. Realization strikes her that his teacher is the Fairy King, a legendary being. A maid arrives and informs Sarah it is time to train with Alfonso, the Lord's grandson. Sarah excuses herself, asking Lolita to escort Ryo. She bids him farewell and departs. Lolita leads Ryo toward the city gate, where they encounter the Guildmaster once again. The Guildmaster invites Ryo into his carriage and gives him a new task to escort a merchant group to their destination. Niels asks Ryo to form a temporary party with Ito and Amon for a hunting request from his home village, Abaldi. The quest targets goblins and skeletons and requires D-rank adventurers, but Niels and Ito only hold E-rank status after the Great Tidal Boar. Ryo agrees to help, amused by the idea of facing classic fantasy monsters like skeletons. The group meets with Guildmaster Hugh for a briefing. Hugh explains that their request comes from the Kailadi branch and 2 previous parties failed. An E-rank party suffered injuries and a D-rank party faced a village hostility. Niels finds this unusual for his hometown. Hugh believes the team will succeed with Niels as a guide and Ryo's magical strength. Ryo can participate because his escort mission to Whitnash is still days away. The party travels for a day to reach Kailadi, where they meet with a guild official and rest overnight. They continue to Abaldi, arriving in less than a day due to their enhanced stamina from training, as Amon notes. The villagers welcome Niels back warmly, prompting Ryo to tease him about not being a Hellraiser, who is expelled, as common in fantasy tales. They meet Mayor Bulan, who also greets Niels happily and compliments his growth. Bulan recalls Niels being a little Hellraiser in his youth, amusing Eito and Amon. The discussion turns to the previous party's failures. Bulan explains that the D-rank party entered a taboo area in the eastern woods and spilled blood there, leading to the village's hostility. While Niels consults with the village council and elders, the others interact with his younger brother and sister. It is revealed that Niels postponed his adventurer dreams to care for his family after his parents passed away, waiting until his brother turned 18. Ryo and the others reflect on this, recognizing it aligns with Niels' character. Niels returns with permission from the council to proceed with the hunt and share village secrets. He explains that the eastern woods host a sacred guardian beast and a powerful shrine. Ryo giggles again, anticipating a fantasy trope where the guardian beast is corrupted, leading to an epic battle. The plan is to start with the goblins the next day, after which the village elder will disclose details about the shrine. Bulan guides the party to the last known location of the goblins. Ryo takes another opportunity to joke about Niels, while Ito and Amon discover goblin tracks. Ryo senses a group of over 10 goblins approaching within 5 minutes. Niels devises a strategy to eliminate all but one goblin, which they will follow back to its den. Ryo uses Icebind to encase most goblins in ice, leaving one escapee. Niels and Amon dispatch the trapped goblins. The group tracks the survivor to a cave in a rocky cliff, repeating their tactics to clear the exterior. A much larger foe, a goblin general, emerges. This creature had previously challenged groups like the Crimson Sword and White Brigade during the Great Tidal Boar. Before it can harm Niels or Amon, Ryo traps it with Icebind, this time manifesting as giant chains that force it to the ground. Niels is so stunned that Ryo must remind him to deliver the final blow. Eito and Amon celebrate their success, returning to the village with the goblin general's magic stone while singing joyfully. Bulan introduces the village elder Nasu, who criticizes both Bulan and Niels as boors. She agrees to lead them to the guardian beast, and Ryo eagerly anticipates a fight. During the journey, Eito notices a talisman on Nasu's staff linked to the Earth Mother goddess. Nasu is impressed that Ito, a light priest, recognizes it. Nasu and Ito explain that while the goddess of light is widely worshipped, other deities in the pantheon of the Seven are often neglected, though the Earth Mother remains traditional in Abaldi. Ryo inquires if Nasu can use healing magic. She confirms her ability, noting it differs from light magic and requires no incantations, which surprises Ito. They arrive at the guardian beast's home, and Nasu announces their presence. The beast is a giant blue wolf named Fenrir Nkusin, who appears uncorrupted, disappointing Ryo briefly. And Kusen focuses on Ryo, introducing himself by name. This act shocks Nasu and Bulan, as it is unprecedented. Nikusen explains he is akin to the Fae and finds Ryo's presence pleasant and rejuvenating. Ryo recalls Sarah's comment about the Fairy King liking him, wondering if he possesses a trait that appeals to fairies. Nikusen informs the group that 30 skeletons surround the shrine, with an especially powerful arch skeleton inside that he has been restraining due to insufficient shrine power. The party proceeds to the shrine. Niels uses the light spell Turn Undead to dispel the skeletons. Niels and Amon push open the shrine doors to reveal the arch skeleton. Ryo employs ice creation to form large hammers around Niels' and Amon's swords, then signals Nkusen with ice flower. The beast releases the arch skeleton. Ryo uses a slippery version of Icebond to repeatedly knock the creature down whenever it tries to stand. Niels and Amon work tirelessly to destroy it with their hammers, exhausting themselves in the process. Nasu leads them into the shrine, which she has never entered before. According to the last priestess, the statue inside should hold a shining, sacred jewel, but it appears dark, chipped, and cracked. Nasu realizes the jewel was a focus for power flow, likely spawning the skeletons and goblins. Ryo speculates that these monsters might have caused the deaths of Nils' parents. Nasu decides to use her earth magic to seal the cave, preventing future occurrences. On the return journey to Lune, the discussion shifts to living arrangements. Niels and Ito have nearly exhausted their 300-day allowance in the guild dormitories. They plan to buy a house or rent an apartment together and invite Ryo and Amon to join. Amon accepts immediately, but Ryo requests time to consider the offer. Hugh and Abel meet in Hugh's office. Hugh asks Abel to represent him at the upcoming Whitnash Open Port Festival, and Abel agrees. Meanwhile, in an arena in the imperial capital of Debuhi, 2 trainees spar using magic. Their lieutenant reprimands them for lowering their guard. The commander appears and addresses the trainees, announcing that she and the lieutenant will be in Whitnash for 2 months and expects training to continue. Niels, Amon, Ito, and Ryo escort a merchant wagon train from Lune to Whitnash. During the journey, Ryo notes that completing this job will allow him to return to Rondo in time for his rice harvest. Niels is surprised Ryo is on the same assignment and proposes naming their group Room 10, a name Ryo and Amon dislike. The group will stay in Whitnash for 9 days to attend the Open Port Festival, which Ryo anticipates enjoying. The trip concludes without incident that evening. Upon their release by the merchant, the 4 friends immediately visit local food stalls to enjoy various festival foods. The next morning, a long line of carriages delays entry into Whitnash. Inside Oscar's carriage, his aide Jurgen explains the holdup is due to paperwork issues with a carriage from Kufaris. Oscar accepts the delay calmly. Their conversation turns to the Emperor's motives for sending Princess Fiona away from the capital. Oscar speculates the Emperor wishes to protect his 11th daughter, a talented magician who commands the magic division, from impending political turmoil. Oscar resolves to ensure her safety during the visit. After a nightfall, an aristocratic social event takes place at the manor of Whitnash's lord. The 3rd Prince Conrad mingles with guests, but takes time to check on his sister Fiona, who appears very unhappy. He allows her to return to her room, where she collapses onto the bed, exhausted. She tells her aide Marie that she is not suited for such events. Marie comforts her by reminding her of her skills in magic and swordsmanship. The next morning, a parade marks the official start of the festival. Ryo and his roommates notice Abel in the VIP stands near Fiona. They are joined by the rest of the Crimson Sword party. Rhea explains that Abel is representing Hugh, who cannot attend the entire festival. Lin observes a powerful wind barrier protecting the VIP stands, attributing it to a magical treasure owned by Whitnash's lords. Ryo finds it impressive, but Lin notes that it is inefficient and rarely used. Rhea believes it is activated now because an attack on the Imperial family could lead to war. Since Fiona commands the Imperial Magic Division, Lin and Rhea assume her lieutenant, Oscar the Inferno Magician, is also present. Ryo is impressed by Oscar's title, and Rhea shares rumors of his legendary feats. Ryo agrees it is best to avoid provoking him, and Rhea agrees, though she does not think Oscar poses a threat to Ryo. The 2 groups separate. The festival is so crowded that Ryo almost backs into Oscar, but he quickly avoids a collision. They both apologize and go their separate ways peacefully. Oscar and Jurgen are on a mission to buy festival food for Fiona, who prefers to avoid crowds. Oscar also dislikes crowds. Jurgen reviews their list, noting they have okonomiyaki and grilled mini kraken but still need fried balls, like takoyaki and fish and chips. Elsewhere in the crowd, Abel accidentally bumps into Conrad. Conrad recognizes Abel as Hugh's substitute. Abel introduces himself, explaining that he currently goes by Abel, while Conrad diplomatically says he resembles someone else he once met. Abel dismisses this as coincidence and remarks on seeing Fiona in the stands, asking if her lieutenant is present. Conrad declines to answer and excuses himself. Abel laments that he is not good at such interactions. Back in her room, Fiona collapses again from exhaustion over playing the role of a princess, while Marie points out that she is indeed a princess. Oscar and Jurgen arrive with the food. Oscar is also tired from the crowds. Jurgen mentions the near collision with Ryo, and Oscar attributes their avoidance to Ryo's quick reflexes, which he finds unusual for a magician. Oscar reheats the food with a simple gesture. Fiona thanks him, addressing him as master, but Oscar reminds her not to use that title. Fiona assures him that only the four of them are present. Amon and Ito try an archery contest, but miss the floating targets. Niels tells Ryo he decided not to enter because he has never used a bow. They hear laughter from behind and find Abel, who says Niels reminds him of his younger self. Amon and Ito return defeated, and Ryo pushes Abel forward to enter the contest. Abel objects that he is a swordsman and prefers not to attract attention, but when his turn comes, he hits a bullseye on the farthest target. The crowd compliments him, but his party members confront him. They have been shopping, and Warren carries many packages. Lynn secretly informs Ryo and Amon that Abel was supposed to accompany Rhea around the festival but did not show up, making her angry. They drag Abel away for more shopping. Back in Loon, Sarah searches for Ryo in the library, curry shop, and guild dormitories before asking Nina about him. Nina explains that Ryo is away on a job and will be gone for at least a week. Sarah feels devastated. Ito and Ryo watch a boat race from a bridge, with Niels and Amon competing. Niels becomes angry to see Dan in the next boat, and Ito points out Sasha, the girl Dan rescued earlier, watching from afar. Ito explains that Sasha is a priest from room 2 and likely joined Dan's party. The race begins. Fiona, Oscar, Marie, and Jurgen watch from a less crowded spot. Fiona asks why there is a separate race for adventurers, and Marie explains that adventurers can attack each other in the second half, though magic is not allowed. Oscar thinks magic would end the race quickly, and Jurgen reminds him that most magicians are not as powerful as he is. Fiona snacks on a sweet crepe and wants to have them at the training grounds, but Oscar refuses to allow it. Niels and Amon race neck and neck with Dan and his partner into the final turn, far ahead of others. Niels and Dan start attacking each other with oars, while Amon and Dan's partner continue rowing. They break their oars on each other, then grab their partner's oars. Their boat stopped just short of the finish line. They break the second set of oars and begin fighting with fists, allowing all other boats to pass them. They grapple, push each other, and overturn both boats. The crowd finds the fight so entertaining that they receive a trophy as favorites, and they continue fighting over it. Hugh arrives in town and attends a presentation on a new boat called the Rain Shooter, which lacks oars and sails and is propelled by alchemy and magic stones, using wind above water and water below. He spots room 10 in the crowd and explains the boat should be impressive despite costing 370 billion florins. Room 10 visits a crossbow shop where Ito looks for a weapon for medium range support. The shopkeeper shows him a repeating crossbow, which has short range but fires quickly. Ito tests it, likes it, and buys it. Dan's party and room 10 meet for drinks at a tavern. The group seem to have resolved their differences, except for Niels and Dan, who still argue. The Crimson Sword examines the Rain Shooter. Oscar, Fiona, Marie, and Jurgen wander the festival, enjoying snacks. Hugh leaves Whitnash. Unseen observers watch him depart, remarking that his proxy will be present that night, and that their plan can now proceed. Another aristocratic gathering occurs at the manor that evening. In the courtyard, Conrad formally introduces Fiona to Abel before they part. Abel, in formal clothes, feels underdressed without a sword but decides it is unnecessary with the wind barrier active. However, a problem arises. The treasure powering the barrier stops channeling the operator's mana, causing the barrier to collapse. Unseen individuals burst into the operator's room and knock them out. Back in the courtyard, Fiona looks up in shock at something approaching and prepares her magic. From outside, an explosion is visible. In a flashback, a village lies at the foot of a mountain, protected by a wooden stockade. Inside his shop, the blacksmith Rassan works at his forge with the help of a young boy named Oscar, who has bright red hair. When the iron reaches the right temperature, Rasan informs Oscar and the fire immediately dies down. Rasan then hammers the iron on the anvil. Oscar watches with joy, and Rasan lets him swing the hammer a few times before continuing. Later, Oscar meets his father, Sna, outside, who asks him to help his mother with dinner. Inside their home, Oscar starts the cooking fire with a gesture and a command to burn. His mother thanks him warmly. Sometime later, Rasan and Oscar examine 3 finished swords. Sna arrives and asks if Oscar has been useful. Rasan confirms that Oscar's assistance makes the process much more efficient, and since Oscar is nearly 7 years old, he gives him the smallest sword as a reward. Oscar is delighted. During a village hunt, Oscar successfully hits a boar with an arrow, earning congratulations for his first prey. At the feast that night, Sna receives a report from another villager named Shu about a large bandit group of at least 50 members planning to attack the village soon. With no time or place to flee, the villagers decide to fight. On the night of the attack, many villagers, including Sna and Oscar, wait on the stockade wall with bows, while others stand guard below with spears. The villagers strike first, killing several bandits, but the bandits advance anyway. Sna sends Oscar to his mother at Shu's house, assuring him not to worry because Sna has one of Rasan's swords. Shu guards the house, protecting Oscar, his mother, and another woman inside. The women hold spears and Oscar has his small sword. The bandit chief Boscona jumps over the stockade, kills the archers, and opens the gate from inside. Bandits rush in, killing more defenders. At Shu's house, Shu's body is thrown against the window, cracking it. Boscona breaks in. Oscar's mother attacks with her spear but is easily killed. Oscar, scared and angry, casts a firebolt at Boscona, who blocks it and mocks Oscar, saying the sword is fine but too much for him to handle. As Boscona is about to kill Oscar, Sna charges in and knocks him away. Shocked by his wife's death, Sna follows Boscona outside in anger, where he is shot with arrows and killed by Boscona, who takes Sna's sword. Boscona is called away by his second-in-command Poch, because wolves attracted by the blood are approaching. The bandits leave, and wolves enter, eating the dead and wounded. Rasan finds Oscar and one other survivor in the house and convinces Oscar to flee to the river where wolves will not follow. Oscar's last sight is of Rasan fighting the wolves. Oscar reaches the river, pursued by wolves, and falls in, carried away by the current. Oscar wakes up in a large manor house with an elderly lord named Luke Rothko beside him. Luke explains that a villager found Oscar by the river and guesses he endured a terrible ordeal. Oscar cries uncontrollably. After he calms down, they talk more. Luke shares a legend that Oscar's red hair shows the fire god's blessing and wonders if fate brought them together. They agree Oscar will live at the manor and receive an education. Oscar also requests sword training. Years later, Oscar, now a teenager, stands outside the manor covered in flames. He runs inside to find Luke killed by Boscona, the same bandit chief from his village. Oscar attacks and wounds Boscona in the face, but Boscona grabs him and stabs him with the sword that once belonged to Sna. Boscona again taunts that the sword is fine but too much for Oscar. Poch arrives, warning of approaching knights, and the bandits flee. The knights arrive too late. Oscar staggers through the forest alone, wounded, repeating the names Poche and Boscona. His hair has turned white. Back in the present, Abel is called away from the garden party by the Lord of Whitnash to discuss a local Adventurers Guild chapter. Oscar, Jurgen, and Marie enjoy snacks at the festival, but Oscar refuses to eat in case Fiona needs him. Jurgen thinks Oscar might be overprotective, especially with the barrier active. The attack on the garden party begins with blasts of fire raining down. Fiona sees her brother Conrad slumped against a ruined wall across the garden. She runs to him, erects a protective barrier, and starts healing him. Conrad stops her before she uses all of her mana. Masked attackers enter the garden, killing guests. Fiona and Conrad move to a gazebo outside the main garden for shelter. Conrad notes the manor is likely locked down and asks Fiona to signal her knights, even though it reveals their location. She fires 5 red orbs into the sky. At the festival, Oscar, Marie, and Jurgen see the signal and rush to the manor. Ryo also notices the orbs but does not understand their meaning. Attackers approach Conrad and Fiona, and Conrad realizes they are the targets. Inside the manor, guests lie dead in the hall. Oscar bursts in, followed by Jurgen and Marie, and kills the attackers there with firebolts. Finding no one alive, they run to the inner garden. Several attackers charge Conrad and Fiona. Conrad defeats most with stone javelins, and Fiona takes out the last with light javelins. From a distance, they hear an incantation for the powerful wind spell Bullet Rain. Fiona intercepts it with Sanctuary Square, but the effort drains her mana and she collapses. Another incantation begins. Oscar, Jurgen, and Marie arrive at the ruined garden. Oscar orders the others to find Fiona, believing she is alive. Near Conrad and Fiona, the incantation mixes fire and earth magic. Fiona realizes it is the volcano spell and pushes Conrad back just before it completes. The blast throws Fiona into the sky. Oscar sees her body flying away as her defensive spell fades. He has a brief flashback to his past traumas before telling Jurgen and Marie to protect Conrad. He goes after Fiona. On the beach, Niels, Ito, and Amon have brought their favorite festival foods to share, but Ryo is late due to the crowds. They notice the volcano spell at the manor. Niels sees a body flying toward them and recognizes Fiona. He catches her before she hits the ground. Ito calls for Amon, who is chased by two masked attackers from the manor. Amon fights them off, allowing Ito to cast physical barrier to block a thrown dagger. Ito shoots one attacker with his crossbow, and Amon defeats the other. The three discuss how to protect Fiona, but Oscar appears on the cliff above. Enraged, he mistakes them for kidnappers and orders them to step away. He prepares to assault them. Ito quickly deploys a physical barrier to block Oscar, but Oscar's magic is too strong, causing Ito to collapse unconscious. Only Amon and Niels remain to face Oscar, who is determined to kill them. Ryo arrives just in time to save his friends. He becomes angry at Oscar for harming them. Oscar attacks Ryo with flare arrows and destructive fire magic, but Ryo blocks every attack without effort. Ryo responds with equal force, and they engage in close combat with their swords. Neither one gains an advantage initially. Abel arrives late because he was trapped in a soundproof room discussing business. He finds Conrad and then intervenes in the fight. Abel explains to Oscar that Niels, Ito, and Amon are adventurers from Lune who saved Fiona, not attackers. Oscar calms down after hearing this, but Ryo remains furious and wants to kill Oscar for hurting his friends. Ryo threatens to freeze Fiona to make a point, escalating the conflict. Oscar releases a massive wave of fire, but Ryo counters it with a jet of water. Abel warns that killing Oscar could start a war between the kingdom and the empire. He adds that Conrad sent him to protect Fiona. Abel asks Ryo if he would retreat if someone harmed Rhea, and Ryo reluctantly agrees to stand down only because of Abel's plea. Ryo tells Abel to take Fiona away and then wanders off, thinking about how his friends have become an important part of his life. The festival ends, and Abel manages the aftermath. Many nobles were killed, leading to potential diplomatic problems. Fiona thanks Niels, Ito, and Amon for rescuing her but does not thank Ryo. The escort job is considered complete only when the group returns safely to Lune. Back in Lune, Sarah feels lonely without Ryo and searches for him in various places. She finds him in a restaurant and becomes very happy. Sarah takes him to the restricted section of the library with her special permission to show him an alchemy formula. Ryo copies the notes by hand, and Sarah mentions that transcription magic exists in this world, which surprises Ryo. Sarah explains that she works for the Lord, so her library fees are waived and she can bring Ryo inside. She also reveals she is 200 years old but looks young and beautiful, making Ryo compliment her. They go to the transcriber and meet Abel there. Ryo tells Abel that Sarah is like a teacher to him. Sarah feels jealous and asks Ryo to use her first name, which he agrees to do. Later, Ryo meets Abel and reminds him of the promise to buy dinner for 7 days after Ryo saved him in the dungeon. Ryo asks for a favor because his friends plan to rent a house together, but Ryo wants to buy his own home. Abel introduces him to a real estate agent. Ryo requests a noble's mansion, but he needs a higher title for that, so he settles for a house with a large yard outside the city. He buys it immediately. The god who reincarnated Ryo watches over him, noting that Ryo desires a quiet life, but that his future will be filled with conflicts. And that is it for today. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting recaps. Hit the notification bell to stay tuned in for more incredible adventures ahead. Until next time, take care.